Look, the presentation is not a technical one. It's just, I guess, a bit of a thought-provoking presentation around where the industry's headed. And I'm hoping that it generates thoughts on how the industry can move forward and the requirements that continually evolve and improve. And to do that, we're going to start by looking at another industry completely. The Formula One industry. So Formula One is another industry that's changed significantly over the years. And you can see here just the transition of our drivers. The one on the left is James Hunt. James Hunt, one-time world champion, 1976. Nickname was Hunt the Shunt due to his driving style, but also different sort of way of having an R&R compared to our one on the right. There you'll see him pictured with a cigarette. I think it's a Coke actually, on a yacht in Monaco. On our right-hand side there we have Lewis Hamilton, pictured in his designer pyjamas on a scooter. Very different to Hunt the Shunt, the billion-dollar man. But it's not just their R&R time that's changed. The pre-race warm-up has also changed. We have here a then versus now photo. So so pre-race warm-up, cigarette before the race, or a nice stretching exercise. And here you can see a simple illustration of the technical changes made just to the steering wheel of a Ferrari F1 car over the years. I'm not too sure how the driver actually controls all those knobs as they're driving around at 250, 300 k's an hour. But technology has changed the Formula One industry significantly over the years, and the steering wheel's just the tip of the iceberg. The cars have progressed significantly, the tracks have changed, and also the way it's managed and the way it's regulated and rules around racing has also changed. So why was it changed? What led to those changes? One was a drive to improve the safety within the industry. One was always to improve performance, you've got to win. The other one was to comply with expectations of society and regulators or regulations. So they needed to maintain a sport that was popular and still could be productive and make money. So we're going to have a look at a bit of detail of each one of those items. So firstly, starting with safety, this chart illustrates the fatalities by decade from the 50s through to the 2000s in Formula One. You can see there's been a steady drop-off since the 50s and 60s and 70s in that sense. The last fatality in Formula One was in 1994, was Ayrton Senna. And actually on that weekend there was 2 fatalities in that same race weekend. I can't remember the other driver's name. Previously, in the old days, some of the drivers wouldn't even wear seatbelts. They saw the risk of being burnt alive in a crashed car is bigger than wearing a seatbelt. Tracks were not designed safely. They had no run-off points, concrete barriers right on the edge of tracks, all sorts of things that made the tracks unsafe if you came off the road. Now, the cars have an impenetrable cocoon to protect the driver. Safer tracks with run-off areas and protective barriers if you do go off the road. And much stricter race rules on how and where they're allowed to overtake, how they can overtake, and also safety cars. So one of the things I did notice when I was going through and preparing for this, so if you have an accident in a Formula One car at 150 miles an hour, you are safer to be in that car than in a standard sedan at 50 miles an hour. What about regulations? In an effort to increase safety standards and maintain the popularity of the sport, there has been constant regulated changes over the years. You see it start there in 1958. Rule changes included the induction of avgas in the place of alcohol fuels. 1968, we had the first tobacco sponsoring on cars. 1977, Renault produced the first turbocharged car. 78, the introduction of a medical car to follow the cars around on their formation lap. The first time that medical car was used, it actually got airborne on the formation lap. 1982, big year, we had Lotus unveil a new system of active suspension, which saw the start of the electronic driver aids in Formula One. And in 1982, we also had a driver strike as they started to bring in the requirement for driver's licences. Right down, you look down now, in 2014, we had the introduction of a V6 turbo hybrid engine. The Halo cockpit protection device was made mandatory in 2018. And in 2025, there's an aim to produce a 100% sustainable fuelled hybrid engine in Formula One. So the regulations have not just been about safety, but they're also been about keeping the sport standing in society as well. But what have these changes resulted in as far as performance? And you can see here on this chart, this is the Monaco speed evolution over the years. So this is the equivalent average speed over the years at Monaco. You can see on this chart there's been constant improvement in the F1 industry from 1950s right through to, this goes to 2009. But if we looked at the last 10 years, you can also see that we've also increased the pole time at Monaco by 3 seconds over that period. So constant improvement. Now what about the costs? So I assume these are accurate. I did get them off a reputable website. If you have a look there, probably if we looked at 1977 Ferrari, $12 million. Now you look at Ferrari in 2019, $463 million. Team costs have significantly increased over the years. They're actually at a point now where they put a cap on what teams can spend to try and even up the competition. So a 37,000% increase in costs, a 36% increase in average speed, and the same prize at the end. Just celebrated a little bit differently from one generation to the next. So what's that got to do with mining? What about the changes in the mining industry? There's not much explanation required here. So we have a turn-of-the-century miner there on a drill, limited PPE, got a helmet, no ground support. The scaffolding probably leaves a little bit be desired. I don't know if it had been tagged in the last 3 months. Versus a mechanical drill situated under full ground support with no personnel access to anywhere near where the drill's operating or the unsupported ground. The load and haul side of our mining industry has also changed. Got two extremes here. Obviously not all mines are automated like this, but we've got here two push rail carts, turn of the century, versus a fully automated loader operated from anywhere in the world. But again, the mining industry's changed. But what has been the effect of the mining industry changes over the years? This is the Broken Hill, New South Wales Miners' Memorial. Mining in Broken Hill has claimed over 800 lives since the 1800s. Staggering thought. To show the improvement over the years, if you look at the 20 years between 1902 and 1922, 312 fatalities in mining in Broken Hill. 2002 to 2022, there was 4 fatalities. Still not where we want to be, but a vast improvement on where we were. What about performance? If you look at the chart on the left there, it shows the annualised production of various commodities within Australia from 1845 through to 2010. You can see the large step up around 1965. Obviously a lot more mechanical equipment was introduced into the industry and we saw a large step change. But you can see the constant improvement on how we've generated, the amount of commodities we've been able to produce as an industry in Australia. Interestingly, it is a bit hard to see which one's which, but the yellow is actually gold. It is the one that's really showing a tail off towards the end. But what about costs? This chart shows the global average of all-in sustaining cost per ounce for gold. The trend is obviously trending up, but it seems a lot less than what the Formula One industry has done in the way of their costs. So costs are going up. But again, in the end, it's the same price. We're still chasing the same thing. And moving into the future, we have same price, but new challenges. What are going to be the challenges facing the industry now? They're not definitely new, but they will impact us in different ways. And we spoke about a few of these yesterday. Declining grades is one of the challenges we have to face. Older mines, definitely one of the challenges we have to face. Social licence to operate, new technologies, access to capital and access to skilled labour. So if you talk to people in this room, the one at the bottom there is a real concern at the moment. Smaller companies, you'd be looking at access to capital is a lot harder. So we're going to go into those in a little bit more detail on each one. So dealing with risk, we did hear yesterday, declining grades. This here shows the copper grade in Chile. Now Chile is the largest copper producer in the world. And it shows here, over the last 30 years, or 20 to 30 years, the grades in Chile have just about halved. What's this mean? Mines are required to go deeper and modify mining methods to remain profitable. Larger scale. So Arcadia, we survive on moving bulk tonnes. It's the only way we can make profit out of such a low-grade ore body. We need new technologies, as we also were presented with yesterday, removing people from work areas, not just load and haul, but drilling, charging and ground support activities. One of the other things we're facing is older mines. On average, it takes nearly 17 years from the discovery of a mineral resource to put that mine into first production. Approval process is becoming more onerous across the globe. As operators, that's going to force us to prolong ageing infrastructure, upgrade and maintain out-of-date equipment, and dealing with mines that are getting deeper and deeper and with higher stresses. All this we need to do while sustaining a relentless commitment to the safety of our people. Social licence to operate, a new buzzword. So who actually knew of ESG 20 years ago? Something new we have to deal with. The appetite for mines in our communities is diminishing. When I first came to Orange in 2003, and I'd tell people where I work, people would say, oh, the mine's been so great for this town. It's just made this town boom. If you did that discussion now and asked people how they found the mine, I guarantee you it's nowhere near as positive as what it was. There'll still be pockets who really appreciate the mine, but there's others who only see the negative impacts of the mine. There is now an expectation for mining companies to be actively reducing their carbon footprint and becoming more efficient. Access to power is becoming increasingly difficult too, reliable power. And then on from a localised front and in our communities, dust control, noise management, local traffic and concerns of water and even disruption of water tables are major concerns for our communities of which we work in. What about new technology? The ironing industry, I believe, suffers from both a lack of new technology and a willingness to adapt new technology. But I also think at the same time, we've all probably been burnt from new technology that hasn't been introduced very well in our mine sites. We've also been burnt by new technology that was just introduced for the sake of having new technology. This is the greatest thing you'll see. I don't know if anyone remembers the Simpsons episode where they get sold the monorail in Springfield. Sometimes I believe that happens in the mining industry. Off-the-shelf technologies quite often don't meet the needs of all mines. Quite often we all have different needs in different mines, and off-the-shelf doesn't meet what we need to do, and we have to do quite a lot of modifications to that technology to make it work and apply in our work areas. Access to capital. It's becoming harder and harder and is more and more linked to the ESG requirements and expectations of society. And this impacts both operators and explorers. Fewer operations now can afford the full life cycle of mining, so from go to woe, including rehabilitation. Smaller companies are acquiring mines without the ability to fully invest. Again, leading operators to do more with less. Skilled labour. I spoke to a few people and everyone seems to be having the same issue. Even Garvin mentioned it within the regulator. Getting access to skilled labour is difficult. Technically skilled labour is really hard to find, including us as engineers. Currently, the mining industry employs approximately 256,000 people within Australia, and as you can see, there's been a huge jump up since around the year 2000. And everyone in this room, including the regulator, understands that this has had an impact on us all. So I've listed a number of challenges the industry is facing, and there are many more. Obviously, we all have our localised issues within our mines that make it hard. And they all have flow-on impacts. But I still see the future as being positive. And I see the people in this room, the professionals within this room, are key to driving this industry forward within New South Wales. What gives me that level of confidence? It can be easy to look at things and go, geez, it's hard. Everyone's against us. I'll go back to the Formula One industry. We spoke about the speed evolution of Formula One over the years. The industry faced significant challenges over the years. Safety challenges, regulators, introduction of new tech, and obviously ballooning costs. But they managed to increasingly or consistently increase their performance over time. If you have a look at that chart, you'll notice quite a few dips along the journey. They were generally in response to some new regulation or some new safety initiative that was enforced upon Formula One teams. But you'll also notice how quickly they always bounce back from that. Quite often you'll see within the next few years they are already above the speed that they were before that change was introduced. In Formula One, the designers, maintainers and implementers are key to making these speeds constantly improve while making the industry safer. As a mining industry, I see the people in this room, our mechanical brothers who I did this presentation to a while ago, our electrical engineers, our operators, all being key for us moving forward and meeting these challenges. But it's something we've been meeting all through the years in Australian mining industry. It's not something new. I showed this chart earlier, but I didn't talk about the chart on the right. The chart on the right is the average grades across those commodities that we've been increasing our productivity on over the same time. You'll see there a significant drop in grade, but at the same time, we've had a significant increase in our productivity. We've met those challenges when we needed to keep producing. The question is, has the mining industry changed enough? Are we still stuck here? Got the lap board behind our driver's head who's looking around concerned what's going on? Don't worry, there's only a fire in the back of the car. You'll be right. Or have we moved to here? Much more planned, much more organised, cleaner. Our challenge moving forward is we are an industry at the moment that is very needed, but in a lot of areas we're not wanted. I see the mechanical, the electrical and mining technical advancements as the way we overcome these challenges. In many ways, I see the group of people in front of us as being key to overcoming these challenges. Remote technologies, removing people from risk. More efficient equipment, more efficient processing plants to reduce our carbon footprint. Solving localised issues such as noise, efficient use of water, dust control on in local communities. Mine designs to allow for the extraction of resources once thought impossible. Resetting the industry to be one that can embrace technology, the right technologies, and that we can be seen to be a key driver in the sustainable world we're moving towards. The industry has overcome many challenges in the years, and I'm confident we can continue to improve. We will always be needed, but it would be nice if one day we were wanted. Thank you.